Does it have our picture?
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
All right, hey guys, we're here today to come and tell you a little bit about some terms in agriculture that we use a lot in animal science. And so what we've done is we've kind of built a presentation for you, and you have a worksheet that we've passed out to you. And so everybody needs to have that worksheet. You're going to fill out the term, or the term is already filled out for you. You're going to add the definition to the term, and we're going to kind of talk about these. We're going to do these kind of one at a time, give you plenty of time to kind of write them down, explain some things that go with the term, and let you all fill out your worksheet. So with that, we'll go to our first term, which is pedigree. We need to move our camera over a little bit so you can see it. We'll move it right down here. There we go. All right, and so there's your definition of pedigree. And a pedigree is a very important documentation. As you see here, it's a document showing the ancestry of livestock, and it's kind of similar to your family tree. And we have a couple of examples up here on the PowerPoint where we have registration papers for a, looks like a shorthorn here on the left, and on the other side is one for a pig. Now these pedigrees will be in the owner's hands, so it's paperwork as far as proof that the animal is registered. And then also each one of these associations, these breed associations, will also keep it on file there. And so a pedigree is a document that shows the ancestry of livestock, and it's similar to a family tree.
Yeah.
All right, so Miss Llewellyn's going to do the next two.
And pedigree is also known as a registration papers.
Yeah.
So sire is the male parent. So you can see all the pictures up there. We have some goats, sheep, pigs, horses, and those are all the male parent, but they are known as a sire. So on your pedigree papers, if you were to be looking at those and you had your pig and you were looking to see who the male parent was, you would look for the term sire. And then if you were looking for the female parent, you would look for the word dam. That is the vocab word for the mother of the animal. So if you were looking on your pedigree again and you wanted to know who the mother of your animal was, you would look for the term dam.
All right, so next term that we have is progeny, and it will also be listed on the registration papers. This is the offspring of livestock. So anytime there's a baby produced, it's listed as a term called progeny. Pretty simple. All right, next we're going to move into the different types of breeders out there. And the first one that we're going to look at is one called a purebred breeder. Now, purebred breeders, there's not as many of those out there as other breeders. Purebred breeders is going to be a person that raises a specific breed of livestock. And a purebred breeder is only going to raise registered livestock. And so they must have registration papers, a pedigree, like we've shown you earlier, on all of their animals in order to be considered a purebred breeder. Okay? But there's not as many purebred breeders out there. And so as you're driving down the road in Brock, probably you're seeing a lot of crossbred cattle, which we'll get to in a minute. The people that run that operation there or have those cows there or whatever it may be, they are not specifically raising a specific breed. So a breed is going to be a group of animals that have the same origin. In other words, the word origin means it's where they came from. And then they're going to possess the same characteristics. So if they're black, they're all going to be black within the breed. And then the ability to produce offspring with that same trait. So I'll give you all just a minute to write down this little longer definition. But this is what a purebred or a breed would be. So in all the different species of livestock, whether it's a pig, goat, horse, a breed is going to be, followed within the breeding. And so as you breed the same breed together, it's going to produce the same characteristics each time within that breed. It's never going to look different. So one more time, a breed is a group of animals with the same origin and the same characteristics. And whenever they breed and produce offspring, they will have the same traits. All right, I'm going to do the next one.
Yes. Okay, so
I'll move her picture up.
There we go.
Let's see, we'll go down here in this corner now.
All right.
There we go.
So our next one is crossbred. So we talked about breeds, But crossbred is when the offspring result from two different breeds or the mating of two crossbreds. So you'll have two full-bred or purebred, there we go, purebred pigs, for example. Like you might have a Duroc and you might have, I don't know, a Hamp or something, and you're going to breed those together and then you'll get a crossbred. So two purebreds, or it could also be two already crossbred pigs, and then they will result in another crossbred. But you cannot have a crossbred and breed it back to a purebred. It is a one-way street on that.
So as we drive down the road in Brock and we see animals, whether we see cattle or we see goats or whatever we may see, more than likely what you're seeing out there, they may look like a purebred, it's because they're all black and they may look like Angus or whatever, but they're more than likely going to be crossbred because if they don't have registration papers, a pedigree that follows the breeding of that animal within the breed, then they're going to be a crossbred. Okay, so we just use pigs here as an example. Like she said, you make two different breeds together, you're going to get a crossbred. So, all right, you got the next one?
Yes.
Let's see, what button do I push?
There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Move our picture out of the way. Here we go. We'll go up there now.
Okay, our next one is phenotype. So I want you to think of phenotype starts with a P, and physical characteristic also starts with a P. So when you hear the word phenotype, you're thinking of those physical characteristics. So do they have horns? What color are they? Are they red? Are they black? Or are they a mixture of all of these colors? So I want you to think of those physical traits, but also size is another factor, and markings, not only color, but how their color laid out on their body. If it's speckled or if it's just solid patterns or that there. That's their physical characteristics, which is the term phenotype.
All right. Next, we're going to kind of move into some little bit different area of agriculture as we talk about, reproduction in our livestock animals, and we kind of talked about how important in agriculture that it is that we are producing animals that can reproduce. We're consuming these animals. They're the meat that we eat every day, and so as we process and butcher a lot of these animals, we have to have them reproducing and regenerating. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk a little bit about here in agriculture. This one is fertility, and that is just a big term meaning that they are able to reproduce. We want to have animals that are fertile, that don't cause any problems as far as their reproduction. That we want them to be able to basically have an offspring on their own without any trouble, to raise that offspring. And so that whole term there just basically means fertility. I'll let you do this one.
Okay. Barren means that they're not able to reproduce. So certain animals may be barren for different reasons. One example that we had was, say you had two cattle, let's back up. Say we had a cow and she had twins, so she had two babies. One of them was a bull, so it was a boy, and then one of them was a heifer, so it was a girl. So the girl is going to be barren. The heifer will not be able to have calves. So that's something to note about if you had animals and maybe cattle, that certain animals might be barren for different reasons. So the word barren means not able to produce.
Yeah, and those are animals in livestock or in agriculture that we don't want to keep. Mm-hmm. Those need to be off to market because if we're keeping them for reproduction and they won't breed back and have the ability to do that and reproduce, they're not going to make us any money, and they're just going to cost us time as far as having more offspring. All right, I'll take maternal quality here. This one is the ability to mother an offspring. Make sure there's nothing else with this one. Yep, mother an offspring. So this is one of the biggest things as far as selecting good mothers, is we want them to be able to raise their offspring well. And so whether it's cattle, horses, goats, pigs, we want them first off to be able to have that offspring without any trouble. And a lot of times when we have calving difficulties, or when we're having to pull a calf because the mother can't have it on their own, that's not a very good maternal quality. We want them to be able to do it on their own. We want them also to be able to milk their babies and raise them quickly without us having to supplement them or anything like that. And so them protecting their offspring as well, out there on the ranch, open land, there's coyotes, there's lots of predators that could harm babies, and a mother will have the natural instinct to protect the babies and keep them safe. So maternal equality is a really big term that we use in agriculture whenever we're talking about how good a mother, a particular horse, cow, goat might be. All right. Let me do this one.
I'll let you do this.
All right, so line breeding. This is a term that comes up. It's called the mating of animals in a breed that are closely related. And as you hear that, you may think, man, that doesn't sound very good. But we do this a lot in horses because the genetics are so good. What we're able to do is basically mate animals that are closely related. And, we wouldn't want to mate a daughter to a father or anything like that. But what we might do is, closely related as far as they may have they may be kind of like 2 generations apart or something like that. That is fine to do. It's line breeding could sometimes be confused as inbreds, and that's not what it is as far as what we do in agriculture. We're able to really improve genetics by doing some line breeding, and so mainly done in horses, but it's something just to really improve genetics, and it's done. They study this out. It's not just done by just the everyday farmer. It's something that's done by professionals in the business. I'll let you do this one.
All right. So puberty, the age at which an animal reaches sexual maturity. So it kind of differs in different animals. So cattle, that age is 1.5 years old. Swine are more the 6-month range, and then sheep and goats, the 6-month range as well, and then your chickens are much less at 6 weeks. So this means that they're able to breed and reproduce. So this is the age that you're going to put a bull with the heifers or something like this. So they are ready to have a baby.
Good. All right, next we have yearling. And a yearling is pretty much kind of what it says that it is, an animal that is close to a year of age. Now, typically, we can range anywhere from 9 to 14 months of age and still be a yearling. That's just a term that's used in agriculture, especially like in cattle. We call, those are, a group of yearling heifers or, that are out on the wheat pasture or something like that. So that's kind of telling you the age of them. That term yearling means basically that they're close to a year of age. All right, I'll take castration, removal of the male testicles. So as we talked earlier about, in our chart, and we talked about knowing the proper name for castrated animals, like for instance in cattle, it was steer. The reason we castrate, remember, is for basically 2 reasons. Number 1 is to improve meat quality. It's a huge difference in the amount of marbling, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that goes into the meat that gives it flavor. Okay, and then also the animals will grow better and faster. And then also, in horses, we don't eat horses. It changes their disposition, which is the way that they act. That's a term that we'll get to here in a little bit. But this castration, removal of the male testicles, is a good term to know. You need to always use the right, terminology. You wouldn't want to say anything improper here of what castration is. Choked up.
Disposition, just as he said, it is related to kind of the testosterone, for some. So it's a way that they act. So do they have an attitude? I think of, it's kind of how I would like to think of it, is like, does the animal, are they always like kind of messing up and being a pest? If you're working all the cattle, this one just has a completely temperament or something like this. So does it have a good attitude or a bad attitude? Disposition.
So as we talk about disposition, one of the best dispositions for livestock to have as an owner of them would be docile. Mm-hmm. So docile is a term that we use whenever we're talking about that they're calm and gentle disposition. Okay, and so we don't want them to be wild. We want to be able to when we go out to feed them and take care of them, we don't want to be have the fear of them coming after us or being aggressive towards us. We don't want them to run away from us. Especially if we're trying to maybe doctor them or things like that, and kind of get them pinned up into a pen or a chute. We want those animals to have a calm and gentle disposition that is docile.
Our next term is docking. So we saw this in one of the Dirty Job videos when they were docking the pigs' tails. It's a little longer than they should be, so we dock them. It's not a painful process for them, but we also dock some different animals' tails, such as sheep, for sanitary reasons, and then we also, an animal that you might know at home is certain dogs have docked tails, like corgis are a common one that have a docked tail, so that's just a practice.
Sometimes blue heelers.
Blue heelers, yes. So.
All right, good. So that's docking. All right. Now we're going to move into some terminology that we use in agriculture, referring to their animals' digestive systems and the food that they eat. Some things, some terms that we use in that. So we're going to start off with the ruminant, and ruminant is a multiple stomached animals. This meaning that they will have chambered stomachs, and a cow is a perfect example of this. They actually have 4 different stomachs here. You can see in this diagram here, they have one called the rumen, the omasum, the abomasum, and the reticulum. And so those 4 stomachs make up their whole stomach. Now, being a ruminant, they're going to digest food differently. They're going to eat different kinds of foods in order to grow. Another ruminant would be like a goat is also a ruminant in agriculture. So we'll get into some animals that are not ruminant here in just a minute, but a ruminant is multiple stomached animals. All right, let's do monogastric.
All right. So monogastric, they just have one stomach. So the word mono at the beginning of that means just one. So they only have one stomach. So some examples of that are horses and pigs. So they differentiate than cattle in that area that they don't have the 4 compartments, but they just have one compartment.
So I'll ask the good question of, in humans, are we ruminants or are we monogastric? What do you think?
Ooh, monogastric.
Yep, exactly right. Monogastric. So if you said monogastric, you are right. We only have one stomach, just like horses and pigs. All right, next up is diet. I'll take diet and you can take the next one. This is what an animal will eat within a 24-hour period. And so a lot of times when you hear the word diet, you think, okay, we're going to limit the food or something like that. We're going to try to lose weight. But no, actually the diet is what an animal eats within a 24-hour period. And so if you're feeding those animals and kind of controlling the feed as far as, how much they eat and wanting to figure how much they're eating as far as poundage, a diet would be what they would eat in that 24-hour period.
So right off a diet is rations. So the portion of feed you feed at each feeding. So this, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 1 to 2% or 2 to 3% of your body weight for the animals. So that's something of just a rough estimate for your animal, but this is per feeding how much they're getting fed.
So like if you have a 100-pound pig, then probably going to feed them about 3 pounds, would be about what they would eat in a ration. Now you can have multiple rations throughout the day, but most of the time, we normally feed these animals like once a day, and that would be kind of considered their ration. Now, if they go out and they, graze hay or something like that, that's just added to it. That's not included within the ration. But as far as what we feed them, the portion of food fed each feeding, that's what we call their ration. All right, water.
Water. So this is the most important ingredient in an animal's diet. So it needs to be clean, it needs to be water that you would want to drink, and it's very important that they have water access at all times. It's not like feed that it's rationed. It should be like unlimited access to water, and it needs to be clean to keep them healthy and strong.
So water, I'll just kind of add this. A lot of people just take it for granted out there that their animals are getting good water. Pond water is great for cattle and livestock. It's fairly clean. You wouldn't want to drink it yourself. But, as far as like in water troughs and stuff like that, when they get all green and yucky and algae and stuff, and you're like, man, I don't know if I would drink that, you can't really expect your animals to eat it. And so we just want to make sure that you remember how important water is in a diet. And, always make sure that there's water. Animals really need, water every single day in their diet. So it's the number one ingredient in an animal's diet.
Palatability, so what makes the animal's feed taste good. So like, for example, it might be a little molasses that they put in the feed, so where it makes it taste better. So, for example, you could think of things that you eat. There's probably things added in there to make it sweeter, such as sugar. So we do the same thing with our animals' feed, that we add something sweet in it so it tastes good. Something that wouldn't make it palatable if it was super salty, and you wouldn't want to eat it. So it's just making sure that they're eating it, that it tastes right for them pretty much. So the feed tastes good to the animal, palatability.
Right. Next, we'll go to digestibility. And when we learn about feeds, some feeds are digested better and easier by different animals. And so we'll give some examples here in a minute. But a feed's ability to be digested by an animal. So we'll talk about corn in cattle. If you feed a whole kernel corn to cattle, they can't digest it. I don't think pigs can either. And it's just going to kind of go right through them. Their digestive system can't break it down. But if we smash it up, we break it down, we grind it for them, like with a machine, and then have it in our feed, they're able to digest that a whole lot more and a whole lot better than what they would. And so as we feed these animals, we want to make sure that their feeds that we're feeding them are very digestible and that they're getting all the nutrients and things that they need from that feed so they can grow properly. So digestibility, a feed's ability to be digested by an animal. All right.
Corn. So this one's pretty easy. Everyone's familiar with corn, I hope. It's the #1 grain ingredient used in animal diet. So you might eat corn for dinner, but it's different than the corn that we're feeding our animals. This corn is dry and not the corn that you're going to eat for dinner. So.
All right. And a lot of times with corn, like we talked about earlier, they're going to do things to it before they put it in a feed sack, whether they smash it up and grind it up, or they can crack it, they can roll it, they can do lots of different things to it to make it more digestible. But it's a very good product as far as the nutritional value for animals. It's high in protein, high in energy, and so that's one reason we really like to put corn in the diets of our animals. So the next one is creep feeding. I got a couple pictures here of some creep feeders. What these are, they're designed, basically it's a weaning supplement feeding fed to young animals. And so a creep feeding, we're going to feed just the young, okay? We don't want to feed the older animals. We want to give these younger ones kind of a boost a little bit. And so we're going to allow them to have some grain, some supplemental grain and feeding like that. And so only, as you see in these feeders, the big cows, the larger ones, are not able to go into the stalls because you see the bar on top. Only the smaller ones are able to squeeze in there and go up to the feeder and feed. So it's called a creep feeder. All right, concentrate feeds. Concentrate feeds are going to be feeds that are high in grain. Different grain products, we've talked about corn already, but other things that could be in there could be like oats. We could have sorghum. We could have barley. So those are just grains that are fed. They may mix them together, normally in a bag, and so we call them concentrate feeds. These are feeds that are high in grains. Corn would be one for sure, and then like I said, barley, Milo, some other things like that, or other grains that we could also use. I'll let you do roughage.
All right, roughage. So someone might say, oh, your animal needs some roughage in his diet. So what they mean when they're saying roughage, they're talking about those grasses and hay. So very common for your horses and cattle to eat roughage in their diet.
All right, so we went about halfway through. That's 30 terms, and we went there through half of our presentation. We want to make sure that if you missed any of these, we have the PowerPoint up, and we'll be able to kind of go back over those for you, and that way you get all your terms. But we want to be sure we explain these to you. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation. Good luck.